Hello, how's it going? In today's video, I'm covering the Ethereals, the assault on Nathreza, and the Exodar from Chronicle Volume 3. So let's go! Muru was not the only source of power that Kael'thas sent back to his kingdom. Him and his Blood Elves had been busy. They dismantled parts of Tempest Keep and built a bunch of devices called MANAFORGES. These arcane machines were placed throughout Netherstorm and harvested magic from the Twisting Nether, and then stored it in little enchanted mana cells, which the Blood Elves could feed on. Kil'jaeden had been the one to urge Kael'thas to dispatch shipments of these mana cells back to Kael'thas. The prince had thought this was a really nice suggestion from the Demon Lord, and proof that he cared about the Blood Elf people. But in actual fact, Kil'jaeden believed that when the time was right, Kael'thas would be able to use these mana cells to help craft the Legion's portal in the Sunwell. He couldn't care less about the Blood Elf people, because he's a jerk. Over time, the MANAFORGES started to weaken the very fabric of reality in Netherstorm, and this attracted some outside attention. The mysterious Ethereals, a bunch of scientists and magi who had originally lived on a world called KARESH. And just like all other stories of advanced civilizations getting a bit too big for their boots, the KARESHi had doomed themselves and their home in pursuit of knowledge and technology and stuff. Their actions had led to a rift into the void being torn open, and drawing the wrath of a nasty bugger called Dementius, the All-Devouring. As Dementius bathed their world in volatile energies that slowly tore it apart, all they could do was try to shield themselves. And it kind of worked, or didn't, depending on how you look at it. Their magic did block Dementius' shadowy power, but raw arcane energy shattered their physical bodies. All that was left behind were their souls, mixed with magic. So now they were all kind of transparent and shiny. From that moment on, they called themselves the Ethereals. However, the Ethereals did splinter into different factions. Some became nomads and traders, wandering about the cosmos in search of magic and artifacts and stuff. Others swore to destroy Dementius and any other creature of the void to avenge their homeworld. But both of these factions saw Outland as a realm where they could do those things. The merchanty ones hoped to ply their trade and find new stuff to sell, and the more militant Ethereals figured they might find some useful weapons or something. Meanwhile, Illidan had been continuing his attacks on Legion worlds. However, his obsession with the demon hunters had started to alienate yet another of his buddies, Akama. Akama had originally joined Illidan under the assumption that the Broken would gain control of the Black Temple, and Akama was very slowly starting to realise that he'd been lied to. The more he looked at Illidan, the more he found himself thinking, this guy's secretive, he's ruthless, he openly embraces fell magic, he's no bloody different than that Magtheridon bloke that controlled the temple before. This growing distrust soon led Akama to find new allies who could once again liberate the Black Temple from evil. Chief among the new allies Akama found was Maiev Shadowsong, that weird stalkery Batman lady. Maiev and her watchers had remained on Outland. They'd built up their forces in preparation for another attack on Illidan. And Maiev had been a bit of a slave driver, to be honest, because like a lot of people tend to suggest, I think she really wants Illidan's bowls. Her obsession with him clouded her judgment and pushed her to dangerous extremes. It took a while for Akama to earn Maev's trust, but eventually she realised they shared a common goal. They both wanted Illidan on his knees, albeit for probably different reasons. And Akama would actually be quite useful, because he still held Illidan's trust. Except he didn't. Illidan may well have been distracted with his demon hunters and war on the Legion, but he still learned of Akama's treachery. However, he wasn't going to kill the little broken jerk. He had another plan for him. It was nearly time for the demon hunters' invasion of Nathreza, the homeworld of the Nathrezim. All that was left was to open a portal to that world, but doing so required an immense source of power, and Illidan figured the souls of Maev's followers would do nicely. So he forced Akama to lure Maiev and her watchers into an ambush, and they walked right into the trap. Maiev helplessly watched as all of her followers wiped, and their souls were used to open a gateway. Illidan allowed Maiev to live, but not out of mercy. He wanted her imprisoned, and he looked forward to tormenting her just as she had tormented him for like 10,000 years. But that would have to wait, because the way to Nathreza was open. Illidan and the demon hunters struck at the Dreadlord's homeworld with lethal precision. There were two reasons why Illidan was attacking Nathreza. Reason the first being the obvious. Dreadlords were an important part of the Burning Legion, so attacking them seemed like a great idea. But also, reason the second, because they were in possession of an artifact called the Seal of Argus. This object was the key to Illidan's war, because it held the location of the Legion's seat of power. Once this was obtained, Illidan and his servants fought their way through the world's defenders and slipped through the portal back to Outland. But they didn't close the gateway. Instead, Illidan focused all his power on destabilising it. It was time to see if he could do to Nathreza what had been done to Draenor all those years ago. As Illidan closed the gateway on Outland's side, Nathreza bloody exploded, and every demon on its surface perished. This was the greatest defeat the Burning Legion had suffered in thousands of years. Meanwhile again, in Hellfire Peninsula, High Lord Cruel and his invasion force had gradually been growing, and in Shattrath, Adao and its followers were aware of this. The Naru knew it was only a matter of time before the demon army would expand out of that zone, There were a number of brave souls in Shattrath, but they were still outnumbered. That wasn't going to change. There simply weren't enough soldiers on Outland. They needed new allies from somewhere else. But where? Where could they possibly look for more allies to join them on Outland? That's just a real mystery. But then Adao had an idea. It was aware of Azeroth and its heroes, and their history with the Legion. Getting there would be difficult, but not impossible. Although Kael'thas had dismantled much of Tempest Keep, Adao could still sense that Oros had sealed itself off in a wing called the Exodar. And it just so happened that the Exodar could traverse the stars, because it's basically a ship itself. At this point, Adao was just kind of thinking out loud, but Velen immediately volunteered to make the perilous journey. Velen was tired of hiding, and he still felt like he'd let most of his people down. This was his opportunity to protect the few Draenei that still lived, and Adao was like, yeah, alright then. So Velen rallied a force of Draenei, and they set off towards Netherstorm. They'd managed to keep their mission fairly super secret, but kil'jaeden still noticed what was going on. He'd hated Velen for literally thousands of years. All the Demon Lord wanted to do was make that old bastard suffer. So I imagine it took a lot of strength for him to allow them to continue their mission. It was a gamble, allowing the Draenei to join up with the people of Azeroth, but kil'jaeden believed the benefits were worth the risk. This is exactly what he planned. The people of Azeroth will come to this shattered realm, fight against Illidan, and put a stop to that jerk's war against the Burning Legion. Or better yet, they'll all bloody kill each other. The Draenei arrived in Netherstorm and began their daring raid on Tempest Keep, and it wasn't too hard, to be honest. The Blood Elves had mistakenly assumed the Draenei were there to conquer the entire fortress, so they'd spread their defences out. The Exodar split off from the rest of Tempest Keep, and off it went on its journey through the cosmos. However, it didn't take long for Velen to realise something was a little bit wrong with the ship. During their battle at Tempest Keep, a handful of Blood Elves had managed to get into the Exodar and attempted to sabotage it. They kind of failed, but there were some repercussions, mainly to do with landing. When the Exodar arrived at Azeroth, Velen lost control of the ship, and it plummeted like a fallen star. It crashed in a remote area in northern Kalimdor called Azimist Isle. Casualties were high, but many actually survived somehow. The big flash of light caused by the ship entering Azeroth's atmosphere had drawn the attention of Teldrassil's Night Elves. They were wary of these Draenei newcomers at first, but soon realised they weren't a threat. Messages were relayed across the Eastern Kingdoms, informing people of the Draenei's arrival and the state of Outland, and the Alliance unanimously voted to allow the Draenei into its ranks and provide them with shelter and protection. Although the stories of Illidan's deeds on Outland did worry the Alliance leaders, they were going to need to do some more debating first, before they could make a decision on whether to act. And we're leaving it there! In the next Volume 3 video, the Blood Elves are going to join the Horde, and the Burning Crusade pre-patch event happens. So I might actually be able to put some people's characters in that one, but don't hold me to that. As always, thanks very much to those of you who support the channel as patrons. If anyone would like to support the channel in that way, links in the description, and there's a link to the Discord server in there as well. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks, and all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!